Ladies and gentlemen, it's Jason Bell Podcast, everybody. Thank you all. And again, wherever you are, you could be driving at this moment in time. You could be running on a treadmill. You could be making some food for the kids. And actually, that couldn't be more relevant to the guest that I am about to interview now. And I would say the most well-known, the most famous, and certainly the leader in the industry. This is good food, essentially, and how to prepare good food for children and toddlers. I can, of course, only be talking about one person. I'm very privileged to have. It's Annabel Karmel. Everybody, come on. Come on. No, Annabel, thank you for coming on to the podcast.
Thank you. I think I have the most difficult consumers of anyone.
Actually, I would say that. Now, look, it's actually a good
Why
time.
did I choose this?
Well, I was going to say that was going to be one of the first questions. If there's anybody left on the planet that isn't aware of who you are, all I would say, look, if you've got any children yourself, any nieces, nephews, any toddlers, anybody around you that you want to feed really good food to, and like you said, the fussiest eaters on the planet. Although I will say one thing, I've just had a baby. I haven't, obviously my lovely Katie's had the baby, but little JJ, he's probably the least fussy eater on earth. In fact, we've got to try and stop it. If he would just consume anything, I think, that was put in front of him. But is that unusual?
Well, I think you're very lucky. But they can lull you into this false sense of security and be very good eaters in the first year. And then their rate of growth slows down and they become extremely fussy and difficult. So I don't want to,
come on.
Hopefully it won't happen to you, but it can happen.
So how did this all start? 'Cause, presumably you did. This wasn't something that you set out at school. So, right, what do you want to be, Annabel? Here's what I want to do.
I was a musician. I played the harp and I sang. Couldn't have been more different. And I loved doing that. And then I got married and it took me a while to get pregnant, nearly 2 years. And then I got pregnant, gave birth to a lovely little girl called Natasha. I was over the moon having this child. It was like all my dreams, all my Christmases all rolled into one. And then one day when she was 3 months old, she didn't look right to me. She looked odd and I thought there was something wrong with her. And after a lot of persuasion, I took her to see a doctor. He wasn't very keen that I should bring her because it was in the evening. And then he just gave me this lecture about how first-time mothers worry about their children, and she was fine. Anyway, the next day, after coming home and thinking, well, I'd wasted his time, she looked even worse. So I took her to see another doctor. I was literally on the doorstep. And he then examined her and said he had to go and see another patient. Left me for 10 minutes. And he came back. He said, actually, I didn't go and see another patient. Tried to get admitted to Great Ormond Street Hospital because there's something seriously wrong with your child. I think there's something wrong with her brain. And he was right. So I took her to St. Mary's. And the next day she was transferred to Great Ormond Street. And then that evening she went into intensive care and she went onto a ventilator. And then 5 days later, they said they wanted a meeting. And they told me that the thinking part of her brain had gone and what do we want to do? And they took her off the ventilator, put her in my arms, and she lay there for 4 hours and she just didn't die. And eventually she died. And it was hurrah. It was unbelievable. And you go home and then all her things are there. And it's just like you wake up in the morning and you just think it's been a nightmare and it's not real. And then everybody asks you how your lovely baby is when you go out and just tears would well up. I can't even tell you how I felt. It was just horrendous. And all I wanted to do was have another baby. So I took Clomid, which is a fertility drug. And 4 months later, I got pregnant with my son. But that was not the end of my story because I always had such bad luck with doctors. I told my doctor that I was in labour and he told me it would be a long time and he was going to be at home. So I thought, okay, he must know. So I called him half an hour, 3/4 an hour later because my contractions were getting closer. I couldn't find him. Eventually found him in a restaurant. Again, he said no, it's a long time. And then my waters broke. I went upstairs and the baby's head came out. I was literally at home. There was no one there except my husband. So I said, I think I'm having the baby. He said, don't be stupid. He comes upstairs and literally this head, I didn't see it, but he told me later, is sticking out and it's blue and it's not breathing. So he thought the baby wasn't alive. Wow. So what we didn't know is the baby can't breathe till the rest of the body comes out. And because it was half inside me, of course, so he's going like this to the face. Poor thing. What a shock. Eventually the body comes out and I'm still attached to the cord, but to the baby. And no one comes for 2.5 hours, even though we call 999. Oh my God. Then I get to the hospital. My mother comes and says, my daughter's here. She's had a baby. And the nurse on duty says, no one's had a baby. Just this woman who's had a baby at home. And she comes into the room and I'm covered in blood, wearing my dress. My husband's covered in blood and the doctor's immaculate. What the hell's been going on? Of course, having my mother there, unfortunately, would have been worse than having her not there because she would have made a terrible fuss. So anyway, the baby was all right. And that was the birth of Nicholas. And he was, honestly, bless him, the world's worst eater. Thank goodness he was such a bad eater, because had he been a good eater, wouldn't have had my career.
I mean, it's hard to just skip past that first part of the story, but I can't imagine for one second, even hearing that story, how anybody, but like you said, you went straight back into it to have another child. But
it's really losing. It's all the hopes and dreams and all the things like you look forward to in the future have gone. And you're not a mother anymore. No,
it's indescribable. It can only be indescribable.
So it changed my life. So from that moment on, I couldn't really play music, even though I had a really good career.
Yeah.
I just wanted to do something with children and make some sense of her life. And that was the reason why I wrote my book. It was my legacy to Natasha. I never thought it would ever do well.
No. Oh, really?
No book on feeding children.
So can I just say, so that first book that you wrote, was it just 1991? What was that called?
The Complete Baby and Toddler Meal Planner.
It's presumably still rocking and rolling now.
It's so popular still now.
Okay,
it's still one of the best-selling books.
So Nicholas was a fussy eater.
Very fussy.
So
wouldn't sleep either, by the way.
Oh, really? No. Well, actually, little JJ hasn't slept
forever.
Really? But I know that.
But it was so difficult to write that first book because I went up and down the country interviewing all the experts on allergies, nutrition, pediatricians, everything. And they all said different things, like, when can you introduce peanut butter or fish or meat? And I was so confused. How am I ever going to write this book? So I remember that when I was at Great Ormond Street Hospital, they had the Institute of Child Health, which is like the research arm of Great Ormond Street, where they actually have scientists looking into nutrition. And I worked with them. So it was very much before its time. It was like, you've got to give red meat or a form of iron from 6 months. You should give peanut butter from 6 months because it helps desensitize your child. You should give the whole egg. And a lot of people were like, oh, no, I won't give peanut butter for a year. And I'm just going to give the white of the egg or the yolk of the egg. And there was actually no reason why they were doing this. And now, of course, everyone's saying, like, when they stop people like having peanuts when they're pregnant and stop babies having peanut butter, the incidence of peanut allergy just went sky high.
It's funny, me and Kate just been speaking about that because I said to Kate, because Kate has not been giving JJ nuts, and I said, no, it's the opposite.
Yeah, you should do exactly. Not whole nuts, but
no, I understand.
Yeah,
ground nuts and everything else. So maybe she should read more of your books. I think that's what she should. And talking to you, but you know, 45 books?
45 books.
It seems to be about the same subject, but presumably there's so many elements within that same subject.
Yeah, I think just food. There's just so many things you can try. Like I'm very into waffles now. I bought this waffle maker and I found that you can put all these vegetables into waffles, like grated carrots, potatoes, zucchini, a little bit of cheese, a little bit of flour, and then you make them into a waffle. Now, no child's going to refuse to eat a waffle. It's so easy.
Yeah.
I'm always finding something new and I get really excited about it. And then my children have to eat it for the next 3 weeks. They're having waffles every night for dinner because I'm doing every possible conceivable type of waffle. Have you finished with the waffles yet, Mummy?
So children up to what age do you make this food for? Because really, so you've got the baby and toddler, but actually, I mean, we've made some of your recipes for the toddlers, but they did adult food, aren't they? Just with smaller portions. I mean, they're really nice.
Yeah, no, but my latest book was called Real Food Kids Will Love, but it's a family cookbook. So it's like you eat the same meal for everybody and it's got like all sorts of things in it, like good for adults.
So people ever talk to you about like breastfeeding versus not breastfeeding and is there something to replace breast milk?
Yeah, no, we talk about breast milk. Obviously, breast milk is the best form of feeding your baby, but you also shouldn't feel like, oh, I'm a bad mother because I can't
Absolutely, there's loads of people that can't, so
because,
they shouldn't feel,
some people can't read without glasses and some people's breasts don't produce milk or they've got to go back to work. And I think, your child isn't going to suffer. Like, you're still going to have a really lovely, healthy child if you don't breastfeed. But there is this pressure on mothers, which I think is not good. So, obviously I'd say breastfeed if you can. There's
this, I'm just going to say new thing. I think everything's new because I've only just had a child.
Yeah.
Right? So everything seems new, but you're probably going to say it's been around forever. Baby led weaning.
Oh, yeah.
But it seems a very natural thing because it was the first thing we kind of did with the little fella, JJ, because for me if I'm going to give him a banana, I'm just going to slice it up.
It's not so good for juice though, is it, the baby-led weaning thing?
No, there's a mess. I find JJ, he's nearly one, but he can't even make his own juice. What's wrong with the little fella?
I don't know.
He can't make a juice. I mean, what a useless little fella he is, quite frankly. Now, I'm only joking, clearly. But I mean, at this point, he can't make
I did a video with this girl and we were doing cooking and the thing she enjoyed the most was turning on the food processor, the switch. That's so funny. And her face went like she going crazy.
Don't think we should let JJ near a juicer. I don't think. Oh God, everything could go wrong if we let the little fella near there. But baby-led weaning seems natural because we get an avocado, and because it's simple food. I love just simple
quite
food as well.
The avocado for the baby-led weaning.
Because sometimes, but we just slice it up, we give it, and there
doesn't he end up massaging into his hair?
No,
and
do
everything?
you know what? He actually does. And literally from the age of, I would say, even 7 months, probably 6 months. You give him the little spoon with the little dish thing, the little plastic thing, so obviously it doesn't.
Does he get the spoon into his mouth?
He just picks it up.
That's very good.
Just does that. I mean, he's quite, but presumably that's not they normally fling it.
Everywhere.
And don't tell me I've still got that to come because that's probably
no. He's obviously like very adept and dexterous, unlike my children, where it went literally everywhere, on the floors, on the ceiling, and the only place it didn't go was in their mouth, basically.
Oh, right. Okay. No.
But baby-led weaning is good. It's good. But it depends on your child. See, your child is the perfect child for baby-led weaning because obviously
just picks up a piece of banana.
has
He literally
wonderful
does.
hand-to-eye
coordination, yeah.
One of mine was dyspraxic, so that didn't help. Everything went all over the place.
Okay.
And I think it's okay to combine the purees and the finger food. Like, it doesn't have to be one or the other. If you want it to, you can just do the finger food and let them feed themselves. Or you can do some purees and let them have soft finger food. But I always give finger food to start with as well as the purees.
It seems like there's a natural instinct of knowing what to feed your child, but there seems to be a lot of confusion out there, which means a lot of people, I mean, millions of people have turned to you, obviously, clearly for advice.
Because there is so much
Because
confusion.
there's so much confusion. Well, yeah, we were saying in the car over here that in the wild, of course, there isn't an Annabel Karmel. There aren't cookbooks.
No,
in the wild, everybody knows.
Surprisingly.
It's weird, and they all know what to feed their children. But what do you think that is? Is it because of the confusion, do you think? And also fear from a parent's point of view of, I just don't want to do anything wrong.
Well, I mean, it starts with like what age you start weaning. Because, we're told, there's this guideline of 6 months, but yet a lot of people lie to their health visitor and have started at 5 months or 4.5 months. I mean, physiologically, a baby can start feeding from 17 weeks, but not before 17 weeks. And in some ways, starting around 5 months with very simple foods so that you can then introduce iron-rich foods and essential fatty acids around 6 months is not a bad idea. Although the guideline says 6 months. But one of the reasons for it is because in underdeveloped countries, of course, breast milk is sterile and the best way of feeding your baby. And I do think that, if you can breastfeed for the first 6 months exclusively, that is a good way to start feeding your baby. But from 6 months, a baby has to have solid food because breast milk or formula milk doesn't contain iron. And there's 2 critical nutrients that babies need, which a lot of people don't realize. And this is the biggest mistake about feeding babies, is they give them fruit and vegetables. And actually, they're very low in calories. And babies have the tiniest of tummies. So they need what I call nutrient-dense food. And so they need iron, because the iron they inherit from their mother has run out at 6 months. And they need essential fatty acids, which is a very important part of the brain formation. So red meat and things like salmon are very important. But if you go into the supermarket and you look at pouches with red meat, it's a very tiny amount of red meat. Or with salmon, there's practically no salmon pouches or any pouches with oily fish. And if there are, it's a very small amount. So actually, lots of babies aren't getting the right sort of nutrition. There are some, obviously, I mean, the raw food world or whatever, who obviously don't ever feed their babies meat at all. Yes, but you don't have to feed meat as long as you have something that contains iron.
Something that contains
iron. It could be
iron,
lentils, it could be green vegetables, but it's more difficult because then you have to have vitamin C. So iron from meat is very well absorbed. I'm sure you know.
Yeah,
this.
Sure. No, I did listen. I've studied the subject for 20 years. Yeah.
Iron from a non-meat source is very difficult to absorb.
Yeah, and that's why you need the vitamin C.
So you could eat loads of spinach and loads of lentils and still get no iron unless you have vitamin C at the same meal.
Yeah.
So you've got to have that combination. That's what I mean.
Your children, you got Nicholas into this at first. So has he been your guinea pig all the way through?
Yes. I mean, they've all been my guinea pigs. Yeah. I would say that when they were all living here, I had 3 children, but I fed about 16 children for every meal because they all knew when there was food at home. Because I'm always experimenting and my kitchen, as you see, is huge. And so they all come back, even though like 2 of them have left home now, they all come back for meal times, which is so nice. I think the way to keep your children around you is to make good food.
Yeah, that's a good idea. Do you still...
We're all obsessed. We're all obsessed with food.
Everyone's
the
obsessed
whole
with
family.
Food.
Oh my God. We think about food the whole time.
Listen, in the UK, they're obsessed with food. I mean, it's a very strange stat as well. We buy more cookery books than any other, twice as many cookery books than any other
How many of them
country
do you
in Europe.
use? Actually,
this
my
is the
books
point, but we
are
also
covered
buy...
in food because people do actually use them.
But that's the difference because we buy twice as many takeaways as well. And what was found out was that actually the average recipe intake from any cookbook was 4 recipes. But I'm imagining when it comes to your recipes, it's way more because people are...
It's used every single day.
And they're beautifully laid out.
Planners.
Those that are listening now, if you've never discovered Annabel, just go on like her apps. In fact, actually talking of apps, we have this thing with the app battle in the app charts in the food and drink, a very healthy rivalry. I've got some apps, obviously, and Annabelle's got an app.
I've only got one.
Is it number 1 all the time? Yeah, but it's easier to get number 1, I would say then. If there's only one. It's not diluted. It's not diluted,
true,
is what I would say.
So if you just put all yours together in
if
number 1, you'd beat
number 1, then
yeah.
I would be. But it's number 1 and it's been number 1 for a long time. And your books continue to be, after all these years, bestsellers. Is your enthusiasm for this subject still the same as it was?
Yeah, actually, I'm so obsessed with it. I love what I do. Like when you love what you do, you don't do a day's work in your life. And I do. I absolutely love it. Like I made up this new recipe today and we went to a supermarket retailer. I won't mention the name. And he said, oh my God, he was like so surprised. He's never seen me before. He's a new buyer. He said, oh my God, these taste incredible. I said, well, what did you expect? So I think he expected some bland taste. So he said, these are better than my adult meals. I said, oh, thank you so much.
we're talking of the supermarket stuff that you do as well. What are they
Karmel
under?
Food. So Annabel Karmel, it just has my name on it.
There's an AK, is there? Or is it just...
Oh, yes, it has an AK in my logo.
There's an AK. That's the first thing I see. When I see them, I just see this AK, so I call it AK Foods. Am I right thinking they're not just doing phenomenally well? You feed like 1 million...
Yeah, we sell millions of millions
and millions.
Yeah, I know.
You know, so technically...
Yeah, chilled food, frozen food, and ambient baby food.
Are they sourced? Are they organic? I mean, organic's a big word. I mean, sometimes non-organic is better than some. I mean, it's weird. It's a big subject.
It's a good question because I think under one, people want organic food for their baby, but over one, the price of organic food is just so high that I don't do organic food for toddlers. And to be honest, it's absolutely
But you do
fine.
some for babies? Because me and Kate actually are going through this mini debate right now with little JJ. So Kate will spend an enormous amount of time making food for little JJ, right? Which is there's a lot being made.
Do you get food made for you or not?
No, I actually don't. No. So there's a lot of food being made. And I see products like yours and with phenomenal ingredients in, already done, already thought through. The science is already thought through and they're organic. And some of the meals are non-organic, of course, that we're making.
Yes.
So my argument is, are you better off making fresh at home, non-organic, or actually getting something in a packet that's organic? And my argument is actually you save a lot of time, therefore you're happier with the baby because you've got more time. No, this is my thing. So we're having this little bat. So we've gone for a halfway house.
Yes. So I think, life is busy. So people say like, why do you make ready meals when you write all these cookery books? Well, not everybody has time to cook. And I want to make a ready meal that tastes like a healthy meal that you would cook at home.
People don't. Time is
based on my recipes,
commodity.
so that anybody can have good food for their child. Because I find that a lot of the ready meals for children are very bland, and they're not particularly good quality. And I wanted to change that. I find that very important. So, but I mean, you can get my recipes for free on my website. You can get my app. You can get my books. You can choose what you want to do.
Your books are beautiful. Your books are absolutely beautiful. And they're not just in this country. They've been translated into languages, presumably. But how many?
So we sell in about 30 countries and we have food in lots of different countries now too.
Isn't it Australia as well? You do really well. From what I understand, I've just had a little look at that.
I
You do like crazy in Australia.
It's unbelievable. I get this phone call from like the number one frozen food company in Australia. We're thinking of developing a food range. Would you come and help us? I flew over there. We then spent a year and we launched 33 products in Coles supermarkets, in 1,500 supermarkets from day one.
From day one?
And now we're at Woolworths.
Confidence.
I'm literally in 2,000 supermarkets in Australia and a household name in Australia. It's unbelievable.
And it's funny, if you're listening to this in the UK and you think I'm in Woolworths, it's very different in Australia.
Woolworths is like Marks and Spencer's.
It is like Marks and Spencer's, but for those that don't know, those that are listening to that.
But I love going to Australia. I love going on the plane. I love it because I love box sets.
It's a long flight.
But I watched the whole of Marvelous Mrs. Maisels. I didn't want to get off the plane. I love like that time when you can like feel not guilty watching a box set.
Of course. It is. It's good that you've still got the passion for what you've done because presumably anybody who's I've been doing this for over 20 years.
It's hard work.
And I know the level of work that it requires to, people just see an app or they just see a book or they just see whatever. But to produce those colour books and they're colour as well, there's so much beautiful photography. There's all the recipes. When you see a recipe, it's not just the recipe just to happen to.
You have to test it over and over again.
Over and over. Well, if you're good at what you do, which you are, you're phenomenal at what you do. So you care about what you do.
Yeah.
So there you are. So good job. You're
not
tired
just
as hell,
I buy my meals every week and I try them and I make sure that they are as good as they were when they first came out because things change.
You've been doing it since 1991. If people are looking for a genuine, I would say, expert in this field and somebody who's done it and tested it, tried and tested. So, because I think I wasn't, 1991, I mean, it wasn't until 1996, I remember even running my first ever stop smoking clinic. I mean, even that seems like it's so, like you were 1991.
How old were you then? 12?
I know. Oh, you're so sweet. You're very lovely. I was 26, I think, at the time. So you're very sweet. Now, I was born in the 60s. But there you go. Late, albeit late. But do you think you'll ever stop? I mean, there's 45 books in, because people often say to me, they say, well, how can you do another
No,
juice
I'm not
book?
stopping because my daughter's getting married and hopefully she'll have a baby and that'll be a whole new, like, oh, now I've got a baby of my own, kind of my own.
Yeah.
Also, I'm going to kidnap this.
Oh, you're already adopting it, are you already?
And this baby is going to be like my baby. I'll be feeding this baby. This baby will have his own Instagram account, like from the moment it's born.
So what's left
It's
to
part
do?
of our, she works for me. It's part of our contract. She has a baby.
Really?
No, it's not. on.
No, I was going to say, well, I believe anything. If I'm the gullible in the dictionary, it's Jason. But what's left to do? I mean, because
so much.
But what would be left? What's missing from the collection, from the Annabel Karmel collection? What would you say is missing at the moment? So the new baby comes along.
Well, I'm writing another book called Weaning Made Simple, which is a lovely book. It's coming out next year.
Okay.
With Bluebird. And I am actually developing a weaning course for mums, sort of videos and recipes. And so like when they're breastfeeding, they can actually like sit there and like take it all in. And it is so confusing. And I want to give them that like empowerment that they know that they're doing the right thing.
My Katie, without question, would have done that. In fact, that is a missing link. That is so beautiful.
I want to actually show them this is the size that you should cut your apple or your pear. Yeah. And like, because they think, oh, like should I have the skin on? And like, I mean, there's so many questions I want to be able to answer and give people, that confidence. It is confidence. Well, like we started a Facebook group and like everyone's talking to each other. I hardly ever go on it now because I love it that they talk to each other. They answer each other's questions. If a mum comes with a problem, all the other mums said, well, I did that and this is what happened to me and this is how it helped me. And it's amazing. Mums love listening to other mums and I want to get that going, create a community.
There are a few courses, of course, you can go to physically. And learn about some of this stuff or whatever.
But you're in your own home, you haven't got the time.
Got the time and energy. And also, if you're in your own home and I'm watching you on my iPad, I'm doing it with you at the same time.
Yeah.
And I've got my little bin lid. Sorry, that's Cockney for kid. So I forgot. I'm back in London, you see, recording this. All of a sudden, I've reverted back. I'm from Peckham, South East London, so a little bin lid. But I've got my child as well.
Gorgeous.
There at the same time. But that's great. When does that come?
I think it will come out at the end of the year.
Yeah, so it's probably January or something, 2020, really, depending on when you're listening to this.
And it's like all the knowledge that I've gained over the last like 26, 27 years and all the questions that people... Can you hear that? That's one of my dogs.
We can hear the dog.
We literally live in a zoo here, by the way.
How many dogs you got here?
So I've got 3 dogs. I've got a Samoyed, who was dog-napped once.
Really?
Oh my God, that was awful. I got him back though. I've got an American Cocker Spaniel and a Golden Retriever.
Is that the next thing on the that's it? You're moving away from baby food.
Did you not see my April Fools?
No.
Oh my God, my April Fools was, I literally designed an exact copy of my chilled ready meals, but for dog food. And I had a kennel on it, instead of my
people would love it though. You
and
joke.
Said,
here it is. We've got somebody coming over now to show it to me.
Where can I get this from?
And actually, oh my God, you must have spent ages doing this. I'm not being funny. That's wicked packaging. Like you would sign this off. If I was in Waitrose or anywhere,
where can I get this from? And then I said I'm looking for models, and everyone was sending me pictures of their dogs for models. Oh, it's so cute.
Yeah, but surely you must be tempted to do this.
I would actually love to do that. And
but this is a great idea.
A friend of mine does do dog food. She does ice cream for dogs. She does like liver ice cream.
They
love it.
See, maybe that's the next route. So
I would love to do that because I love dogs.
Well, there you go. And you got any other animals in the house?
Yes, I've got like 100 fish.
You've got 100 fish.
So I've got mouth
in an aquarium.
No, they're really interesting because when they're pregnant, they keep their babies in their mouth. They're called mouth breeders, so they can't eat when they're pregnant because when they open their mouth, the babies swim out. So they've got to keep their mouth shut until they've grown big enough. God. Not very nice being a fish and pregnant.
No, I was going to say not very good at all.
So anybody pregnant, human, you're lucky. Don't complain.
I don't think there's
at least you can eat.
I don't think there's a book in that, is there? Isn't it? There's only one. It's not technically a fish. And well, Alex here is doing the sound will definitely know because he's like Google. Is the horse? Is it not the horsefish? What am I thinking of? Seahorse. Yes, the horsefish. I call it seahorse. Isn't it the male that carries the baby?
Yes, it's very unusual that. It's the only one.
Yeah. So there you go.
So
just
any
pointing
men
out
out there, aren't you lucky you're not a seahorse?
Very lucky. Listen, if I was a seahorse, and I would think the vast majority of men, there would be no children in the world. No. Because I
think if men had children, there'd be only one child families.
Oh, no, there would be no child family. What are you talking? What child family? In my case, there would be a no child family. Going without any question, little JJ, and so he's just coming into want. What would you say if you were speaking to Katie and said, "Right, Katie, look, have the confidence, weed him off the milk, he'll be all right." And I know there's providers.
She's breastfeeding now, and he's nearly.
She's breastfeeding, as in just morning and night, but actually having food all day long.
Okay, but that's right. If she enjoys that, and he enjoys
just want to point out, he's got plenty of iron and fatty acids. Just pointing that out. Okay.
I think do what you feel is right and what makes you feel happy. If she wants to continue breastfeeding, I wouldn't stop her doing it. I mean, if it fits in with her lifestyle. Right, a lot of people can't do that because they've got to go back to work.
2 questions. Right. What would be the meal if you said, right, the first meal to try coming off milk, What would you say? That's my number one. Give that to the little fella.
Well, one of my favourite things for a toddler.
No, for a baby. First of all, we're going to go on toddler in a minute.
Okay.
Baby, first of all, 6 months of milk. God, I've had enough of this.
Okay.
I want something more. What can I have? And you are going for, what is it?
I think that they really like sweet tasting root vegetables. And I like to bake them in the oven because that makes them even slightly sweeter. So butternut squash, sweet potato. I know a lot of people say you've got to start with green vegetables, but let's face it, it's quite difficult to wean some babies. And they don't always take to food very well because milk comes in a steady stream and sucking is a natural reflex. But swallowing and getting food from the front of the mouth to the back of the mouth is difficult enough. And then you try and give them broccoli and they're like, no, I don't like broccoli.
We were so lucky. JJ loves a bit of broccoli.
Yeah, but not for
I hate it. I'll be honest.
The very first food, I think, should be something that you think they're going to like. So I would rather start with the sweet-tasting vegetables.
Sounds sensible.
And then you can give them the broccoli.
So when you bake the veggies, so you got your sweet-tasting veggies in there, would you bung a parsnip in for good measure?
Yeah, parsnip's
Why
good.
not?
Yeah, I can do sweet potato, parsnip, you can do a bit of apple, and then you can do sweet potato and broccoli.
So you put it in the oven, come out, and then what are you doing with it now? Are you pureeing it? What are you doing?
So the great thing about sticking a butternut squash in the oven is you only have to cut it in half. You do not be wanting to peel a butternut squash. No. It's like, honestly, you'll be in A&E in no time with the knife coming through your hand. So that's a good thing about baking things in the oven. You just scoop out the seeds, brush it with oil, put it cut side down on some foil, and you bake it for like 45 to 50 minutes. And you can go away and do whatever you want. Then you scoop it out and you just literally puree it. Put a breast milk, a bit of your formula milk with it. Perfect food for your baby. It's delicious. That's a good first food.
You see, and toddler. So I've got my little toddler just about there. He's about to toddle. And you think, like, what am I going to...
Well, they like to eat with their hands. So I did something in my complete baby and toddler meal planner.
Okay.
That's my first book.
Okay.
So I make these chicken and apple balls. Now, they came from my son who would not eat chicken, but he loved apples. And I was like, why will he not eat chicken? I disguised it in so many different ways. And then I thought, I'm going to make these little chicken balls. And I'm going to put the apple he likes in them, a little bit. So I made them with chicken and onion and breadcrumbs and apples and all sorts of lovely things and some fresh thyme. Made them into tiny balls, baked them in the oven. Then you have quite a few and you can freeze them. So it's like bulk cooking. He loved them. And we still make them. They're amazing. And I do salmon and quinoa balls and meatballs and all these tiny balls.
See, the salmon and quinoa balls. I mean, so that's the one I think that's going to be the JJ. Salmon and quinoa.
They're yummy. That's in my Baby Led Weaning recipe book.
Right, that's right.
I'll give you a copy of that.
That's it. We are definitely
really
making
good.
those.
And it makes good food. It makes good food for the whole family. It's so yummy.
Now, I don't know whether you advise children to juice or not. I mean, we obviously haven't given JJ any juices yet. We feel he's far too young.
Yeah.
We feel it's far too concentrated. For me, the reason why I got into juicing was because I hate vegetables. Genuinely, even to this day, I hate them. And my mum tried to disguise, as you did, but she would do like cauliflower cheese is one of those things now that I really detest because like you can't disguise cauliflower with cheese. Nothing could disguise cauliflower. It's the filthiest food ever. I hate it. Some people love it.
I roast cauliflower in the oven and I put vinegar.
I'm sure your way. I love it. I'm now going to follow your baby way. Listen, I need to catch up.
I could get you to eat cauliflower.
I was going to say, I think I need to.
That's a challenge.
Listen, I'm a child inside, as we all are. I think I'm going to just pretend I'm a small again and start these recipes. But people have asked me to do a book like juicing for kids and this, that, and the other. And do you feel there comes a point where actually, if they're really not eating some really good stuff, then drinking it is a solution for some? Do you think?
Very young babies, they need proper food, they need fibre, they need all these things in it. And if you juice them, it's not really right for them.
But if you gave them blends, because there is fibre and everything in them, everything is in a blend. It's like a puree. What's the difference between a puree and a blend?
Also, you want to dilute juices a bit for kids because of their teeth
absolutely.
As well.
They have to be diluted.
But the good thing about a juice, but it's the same with a fruit really, is that you get that vitamin C, which is really important for absorbing iron. So in that respect,
we're very lucky. I mean, JJ eats all this stuff, so we have no desire, no need to give him a smoothie or a juice because actually he eats all the stuff.
Yeah.
So so my only concern would be if somebody's really, if they're really, because
I think everything in moderation is okay. I mean, there's nothing wrong with the occasional smoothie. I mean, that's okay. It's like when you do these things to excess. I mean, suddenly like smoothies will come, oh, you can't have smoothies. They're really bad for you. And like there was this thing where like a banana has 7 teaspoons of sugar in it. I'm like, what can you eat?
No, but
it's ridiculous.
But it's different kind of sugars. Don't get me started on that.
Everything has to be in moderation.
Yeah, but also it's not the same sugar as well. And this is why it all needs educating.
It
becomes very silly, doesn't it? Banana to me is the best fuel.
It's portable great. It comes in this handy packaging.
But this one, especially when adults say they can't eat healthily, and you think, well, here's
I do this new thing. It's banana ice cream. So all you have to do is you peel your banana, you cut it into slices, right? And then you put it on a tray and you freeze it for 2 hours.
Yeah.
Then you put it into a blender. It's the easiest thing to do. And you whiz it and it becomes like banana ice cream. And you put in a tablespoon or 2 of peanut butter.
Yeah, nice.
And you give it to your baby.
Beautiful.
Oh my God, they love it.
Well, we've got to funny enough, you can make on a good cold press juicer with a homogenizer.
Yeah.
it makes banana ice cream. So we do
So
exactly
nice.
the same
Do
on
you do
our
that? You
retreats.
say you freeze your
we freeze the banana, we take it out, we leave it out for about 10 minutes, and then
Tiny
we
bit
put it through.
defrosted.
Same with frozen berries. We
Makes
found
wonderful ice cream.
the biggest hit that we have really with kids and ice cream is when we mix our homemade lemonade. So you get 2 apples with a third of a lemon with the rind on. You just juice that, and it tastes like lemonade. Then you could put that in an ice lolly or whatever. But if you mix it with the banana ice cream,
Yeah,
and then
so
blend it
yummy.
up, you've got this lemonade kind of sorbet kind of thing
So you
going
juice
on.
the apple.
You juice the apples and the lemon.
The lemon rind.
You juice the rind as well.
Okay.
You juice all of
it
that.
doesn't become sour.
No, it tastes. Do you remember sherbet dibdab with the licorice?
Oh my god, yeah.
It is identical.
I do, but it always got stuck because that hole was stick
It
together.
was.
Only you and I would know that because we're old enough to know it. No one's going to know what
knows
we're talking
sherbet
about.
dibdab. Listen,
Oh
my
God,
demographic
amazing.
does trust me on that.
Basically,
People listening will know
nobody
sherbet
explained it. It's
dibdab.
a licorice straw that had a hole in the middle, but after you sucked it, the hole just seized up.
The hole seized up.
And then you want to get to the sherbet and you can't.
And
it's
you can't get to
you
it.
try and take it out. The whole thing explodes.
So
over
nobody
you.
will know what I'm talking about the taste of it. But if you ever tasted lemonade,
It's fantastic.
You would have thought the 2 whole apples and a third of a lemon would taste
sounds
exactly the same as lemonade.
Yeah.
But you can put it in a ice lolly and everything else. Well, look,
banana and strawberries together is good as well. Frozen banana and
there's
strawberries.
so much
many
stuff you
things.
can do. Like you said, there's so much.
Yeah.
Listen, I can't thank you enough for being on this podcast. There's so much more to learn. Hopefully you're rushing out immediately. You're downloading the app, even though it will beat my apps now, but it doesn't matter. But you're downloading the apps. And it depends on when you listen to this, because of course this stays in Cyberland forever. So actually your course may already be at the cyber course, which I think is fantastic. I think that's the one for me. And also like the good quality products that you've got in all the supermarkets, and the fact that you've been doing this since 1991, you are without question the leader in this field by a long way. And I love you still putting the power in the parents' hands. You're not telling anybody what to do. I love that.
I'm not didactic. I'm not like, I don't say this is what you have to do. Like, you can choose what you want to do. You can feed your baby at this age or this age, and you can do baby led weaning, or you can do a mixture, or you can do purees, whichever suits you. None of it's wrong. There is no right or wrong way. I'm just telling you that a few things that are really important to realize is, don't just give fruit and vegetables. Do give like red meat or something containing iron. Do give essential fatty acids. Remember that babies' tummies are small. They need good nutrients. And so just be aware of that. And once you've got all that information, then you feel like, okay, I've got the confidence to do it myself. And a lot of people just turn to jars or pouches because they think somehow they're better than what they can make at home. But they're not, because they're treated with heat that destroys a lot of the vitamins.
They do. You need we talk about that with juices. If you have a cooked juice, which is a pasteurized juice, then obviously it's completely different to when you make a fresh juice at home.
So you make yourself will always be the best.
Yeah, of course. It always is best. Well, listen, thank you.
Although I tell you what's strange is like frozen is so good.
Berries, I would say frozen berries, they get picked when they're ripe.
Frozen peas, very good.
They get picked when they're ripe, and they're the best. Well, all that kind of information can be found in your 45 books. Well, thank you very much. I've learned a lot, and I'm going to go home and obviously play this to Katie as well for our little JJ. It's been Annabel Karmel, everyone. Come on, people. Annabel Karmel.